All right, welcome back. And now we're going to get into a very, very useful tip. This is how to master referencing another cell. Now, right off the bat, let's just go over how to reference another cell, right? So I could do equals 2 times 3 here, and that's going to be 6. Another way to do this is I can say equals, I can arrow over to the number 2, I can arrow over to number 3, I'll still get 6, okay? And then another way to do it is press equals. If I press control page up, I can go to another tab, and I can go over to a cell that I want, and then I can multiply it. I go to another cell that I want, right? And I'll also get 6. Notice how here it just references the cells, but here it also calls out the tab. That's because you're on a different tab. So whenever you see the tab reference, it's usually because you're referencing something off the current tab that you're on. Perfect. So now that we've just gone over how do you actually reference another cell, let's go into locking a cell. So let's say I want to just refer to one cell here. So I'm just going to say I just want to refer to cell 10. So if I go over here and I go to cell 10, okay, and let's just say I drag it down or drag it right, what happens is that it'll basically just start moving it down, right? So if I do equals this, it'll say, okay, go down one, go over, go down one, go down one, right? So it's trying to predict what you're doing. And this is really useful. For example, say you just want to set this equal to this, right? Well, when you press Control R, it just guesses that you want it to move down the line. So it's actually useful that it's doing that. However, if you want it to stay in place, you're going to have to tell it to do that. So one way that we do that is we just enter dollar sign. So by entering a dollar sign, you're saying, I don't want you to move the F and I don't want you to move the 5. Okay, so if I do Control D, Control R, okay, it will always reference that cell. It's always referencing that cell, no matter where I drag it. Okay, now a quick way to do that, by the way, is instead of actually, and you press F2 to jump in and edit it, instead of actually adding the dollar sign here, you just press F4. I'm sorry, let me do that. So if you're in the cell, if I press F4, it'll do that. Okay, now if you press F4 out when you're not in the edit mode, it'll get rid of it there. But if I'm in edit mode and I press F4, it'll do that. Now if you press F4 again, it'll revert to just locking row 5. You press it again, it'll lock column 5. You press it again, it gets rid of it. Press it one more time and you're back to the original. Okay, so why is this useful? Well, let's say we want to multiply this entire row here. Let's make this yellow. Let's say you want to multiply the entire row by 10. So what do? So we say, okay, I want you to select the row you want here, and I want you to multiply it by this cell. So if I drag this over, what's going to happen is that we didn't lock the cell. So as you can see, as it goes down the line, instead of multiplying by the 10, we're going to multiply by the 20, then the 60, right? So this is messed up. So we go back here, we say, okay, edit the cell. I'm going to press F4. It'll lock just that number. And when I drag it down this time, it's going to stay on the 10, which is exactly what we want. Perfect. All right, so that's how we're going to lock the row we're on, okay? So this row has been locked. Now, let's say we want to lock by column. Okay, so let's add a couple numbers here. Let's say you're trying to, let's say, get rid of this. Let's say you're trying to multiply down a line here. And you say, okay, I want to take this number and multiply it by this number up here. Okay, we can do that. So I'm going to take that number and I'm going to multiply by 10. Okay, now if I also do this, okay, so sorry, I should have left that up. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to lock column F. So if I press F4 once, F4 twice, F4 three times, and I drag this out to the right, notice how it's still staying on 10. Okay, but here's going to be the difference. When I drag this down, okay, notice how now this row is moving. But notice how the column stays locked. So if I go out here, it's still on the 30. It's still on the 30. It's still on the 30. But if I'm up here, it's on the 20, right? So you can, when you go down a row, it will go from F5 to F6. But as you go over columns, it's going to stay locked to column F. So this will never change. But as you go from row to row, it will change the row in column F. Now, as you can see, this is kind of messed up. This is, if we were trying to multiply the row by the column here, this is not what we want. So we're going to fix that. The way we fix it is by locking one row and one column. And this can get a little confusing for people the first time because you're kind of confused. Like, all right, when do I lock the column? When do I lock the row? And the way I think about it is this. I want to multiply these numbers in column F, which we're going to make light blue. And I want to multiply them by the numbers in row 4, which are in green. Okay, so what we do is just say, okay, I want to multiply this by this. Okay, now again, if you do Control G, Control R, this will be all messed up. So we don't want that. So how we do this is say, okay, let's go in here, and for the F5, okay, we want just to lock column F. So I'm going to go here, I'm just going to lock column F, and I'm going to go here, and I'm just going to lock row 4. And what that's going to do is it says, okay, stay in column F and stay in column 4, but adjust while we're multiplying. So if I go out to here, okay, it moves. So this row 30 doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many columns we go out. As long as we are on row 7, it will multiply by F7 right here. We could go out a million rows. Does not matter. All right. Same thing here. We can go down a million rows. It's still going to multiply by that first cell here. Okay. And this is how you set it up to be alternating. You set the row that you want to be locked, and you set the column that you want to be locked, and then you can expand out the formula. And that's where I think the real referencing can become really exciting.